I think that we should start with some introductions. I'm Will. I'm the Ecosystem Growth Manager at Oasis. My roles and responsibilities essentially are work with our various departments, our engineering team, our BD team, our marketing team, and our community team, and help set strategy and prioritization for the growth of our ecosystem. We're joined today to talk about Sapphire, our imminently launching paradigm on Oasis, as well as the Oasis privacy layer to help bring privacy to other EVM networks. We're joined today by XDAO, Reputable DAO, and Oris DAO to talk about the DAO space in general, as well as how DAO and DAO governance can benefit from privacy in the future. We're joined, so without further ado, can our panelists from XDAO, Reputable, and Oris DAO maybe do some brief introductions, talk about their products a little, and then we can begin.
Hi everyone, it's so great to be here. I'm very glad to speak about DAOs and confidentiality that they could use. Generally, I am representing our platform today, and we are a platform for DAO creation. We have 30 different blockchains that you can build your DAOs on, and we have amazing amount of tools that you could use to build your DAO. And I'm very glad to speak about some confidentiality that could be implemented. My role in XDAO is I'm a head of web design department. I think that's pretty much it.
Raul, if you guys want to give some introductions real quick.
Yeah, so I'm Rahul. I'm the business development head and operations guy at Oasis DAO. Yeah, so we were building Oasis DAO in stealth for the last year or so, and we'll finally be launching soon the DAO that governs the Oris Finance protocol. We'll be introducing the first automated market taker protocol in DeFi soon. And I'm excited to talk about privacy layers in DAO governance and happy to be a part of this conversation.
Hi, I'm Kyle. I'm with Reputable DAO. I'm one of the co-founders. We are a data union DAO for health and wellness, and we're excited to discuss privacy with everybody today. So yeah, thanks for having us and excited to be a part of the conversation.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kyle, Paulina, and Raul. We're excited to jump into the conversation and talk a lot about the DAO space and how DAO governance can be improved with privacy. So first, I'll do some quick overviews of Sapphire as well as Oasis privacy layer, and then we'll get into the conversation. So first question is, what is Sapphire? Sapphire is our recently launched confidential EVM. It's the first and only confidential EVM. And what that means is that on the Sapphire network, smart contracts can be built in the same way that they're built on any other EVM networks with the same functionality, but they also have the additional functionality that they can hide aspects of state from the network. And that's maybe an abstract idea for some, but the best way to explain it is with an example. So you could imagine maybe DEX that similar to, Uniswap version 2 DEX or a balancer DEX, any of these DEXs on Sapphire, you can build it so that it works the exact same way, except for if you wanted to create something like MEV resistance, you could hide the slippage parameters and the order book, and just by hiding those two aspects of states, which is not possible to be hidden on any other network, you could essentially create a way for front-running bots and sandwich attacks, where they're trying to calculate whether they can arbitrage price and make profit. You could hide whether that profit ability is possible, and therefore create like an MEV-resistant DEX. So this is to exemplify that on Sapphire is massive user experience benefits. So the user experience would be the same. You just save 1% on every single trade by hiding these two parameters. And so the way that I like to think about it is that on Sapphire, you're able to create entirely public smart contracts that work like they do on other EVMs. You can create like entirely confidential smart contracts that hide, everything and make everything anonymous. And then you can also range the entire spectrum in between, where you just customize and choose exactly which aspects of state you want to hide to best create better user experiences and create maybe more sophisticated applications. I think 100% transparency of smart contracts can sometimes be limiting in how sophisticated a smart contract can be built. So that leads us into the Oasis privacy layer. Essentially, the Oasis privacy layer is a framework where you leverage cross-chain messaging. These privacy benefits are not just native to Sapphire and the Oasis paradigms, but actually can empower other paradigms and other EVM networks to send messages cross-chain and therefore achieve similar levels of confidentiality without having to build their entire application on Oasis. And so I think we'll talk a bit about the Oasis privacy layer when we get to DAO governance, how that would work. But that's the general idea, is a way to create or to empower applications on any EVM network to leverage Sapphire to build a modular privacy approach. So yeah, I hope that is a brief but sufficient overview of both Sapphire and the Oasis privacy layer. So for my panelists, I guess it'd be good if we could also just get a brief idea of what is a DAO and how do they work. Kyle, Polina, or Raul, if any of you want to take this over and give your overview of how DAOs work.
Yeah, so I'll take that real quick. Just on a basic level, it's decentralized autonomous organization. So it's autonomous in nature. People can show up as the best versions of themselves and do the work that they want to do within the organization, and hopefully do it without needing direction or much direction from other people. And it's decentralized, meaning anyone can join. I think of it a lot like a mission. How do they work? I don't know that they're working the best currently. I think people are still trying to figure out a lot of the nuances. I think the sentiment out there is that they're tough, but once you do crack that nut, I think they can be very valuable. And I'm glad that there's tools being built to help assist with this, since it is a new frontier.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. There are still a lot of different ways of how DAOs can function. And there are types of DAOs that are simply multi-sig, where everyone has the same amount of governance tokens or governance power, or different types of DAOs where these governance tokens can be transferable or non-transferable. And we have some strong beliefs on this part on how DAOs should be, but I think privacy inside the DAO could actually help it become more decentralized. Even though at this time, I think we usually concentrate on DAOs that are as decentralized as possible and as transparent as possible. We believe that at this moment, that is the main trend. But I think there are still a lot of things to figure out. And yes, I think privacy layers could be very much useful.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that DAOs are going to be built in different ways. Like each DAO will have its own ideal framework for how that DAO can best function. I think what's important in the space right now is just increasing the optionality that people have. So like maybe some DAOs have, like you said, maybe they want to have non-transferable governance, or other ones want to have token weighted governance, or maybe one wants to create like a Sybil resistant DAO where it's like one for one voting. Each member of the DAO gets one vote. It doesn't matter how many tokens you have. So, the more optionality by adding privacy and all of these other ideas to the DAO space just increases what can be done and therefore progresses the space forward more. But yeah, Raul, did you have any thoughts on what is DAO or how they work?
Yeah, so I think Kyle and Paulina covered it really well. And I can just say DAOs are basically, in layman terms, clubs or like groups that are community led, and they are run by smart contracts that are basically immutable. So it creates a framework where the rules are set. And yes, we are still trying to figure out what is the perfect framework for a DAO. And since there are a lot of tools being made in the space, we are looking forward to see how we can better implement these DAOs in the future.
So maybe going from that, now that we have a good overview of what a DAO is, maybe we can talk a bit why DAOs are important and how DAOs are integral to improving the Web3 space. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that.
In my point of view, DAOs bring so much to the plate. First of all, it's a great way to govern any project. And that could especially need all of the tools and so many types of governance. And I think that the main feature of a DAO is that it's a community-driven organization. In a decentralized space, it's good that we can see so much about how the governance process goes, see how the decision-making process and mechanics are implemented to the project. We could join and we can have our opinion on the project if we're interested in it. I feel that generally the idea is just amazing and it just takes some time to make it into the world. There are so many use cases that I could tell you about created on our platform that are already there. These are some fundraising examples, like for DAOs who would like to bring funds into their organization. It's very easy to do it as a DAO, as investors can see the process and even be a part of the process, and I think that's great. We have some DAOs who brought their real life business into the organization on blockchain, and they are doing gold mining or they're doing real estate business, and the DAO allows them to do the governance transparently. They can have as much members as they want, up to thousands. We have DAO who has 500 members, and they all vote on the decisions that are going on inside their DAO. And I think there are a lot of examples of DAOs that are fully crypto, fully Web3, and there are so many crazy, amazing examples of GameFi DAOs or NFT collector DAOs. I think there's just so many different types of how DAO could be implemented in all types of projects in Web3.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point. For me, I'd like a time machine to go back and actually have DAOs be a thing. Back when I ran a major health clinic operation, we had 130 employees, and I wish that we had this sort of structure back then instead of a top down, that people felt like they had ownership in some sort of mission, right? I feel like that's really what it enables. It enables everybody to feel passionate and give their best versions of themselves to a mission. And maybe you're a lawyer or a banker or something, but you can go in there and say, yeah, I can do something I'm good at as well. Maybe it's some other passion you have. And so I think that's really cool. I think it's unlocking the power of people. I also feel that sense of ownership, that everyone can own a project with reputable people are earning rep for their contributions, and they feel like they own and they have a say in the governance of how this thing is going to evolve over time. To me, that's super exciting. And it makes the world smaller. You have members from all over the world, and that's different opinions, that's different point of views. It's really fun and engaging conversations. So that's what I think you can do. It can make the world smaller.
Great points, Kyle. Overall, you can say DAOs are great structures for people to come together and work together and make decisions. Essentially, I feel that anybody with an internet connection now can be a part of something that is bigger than themselves. And that's the power of a DAO. That's the real value of a DAO right there. You have a sense of ownership, and you can be a part of a process that you love to be a part of. That's why we love to be a part of such a space.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for your points, Polina, Kyle, and Raul. I couldn't agree more. I think when I think of DAOs, I think of something that is like embodies the spirit of Web3 and decentralization. It just gives everyone a voice. It also creates a unique way to coordinate. I think in Web 2.0, we saw the interactions and connections with other people through social media or review sites and these types of things. And so this is the next step forward, where not only are you connecting with people for social reasons, but you're connecting for all these myriad of reasons that DAOs could exist. I think we've seen some great examples of DAOs that have achieved remarkable levels of fundraising in very short periods of time, or have pushed for massive change in the space, again, in extremely short periods of time. DAOs can be built to do anything. You can build a DAO that handles gaming guilds and coordinating how you're going to farm items or rewards in a game, but you could equally do the same thing and coordinate fundraising efforts in very short periods of time. It embodies Kickstarter, while also having an online community similar to Discord or something like that. I think maybe now is a good time to give you guys the floor and maybe talk about each of your individual projects and what you guys are doing in the DAO space. Yeah, Kyle, maybe you want to go first and just explain what Reputable is doing?
Absolutely. So, like I said, we're a data union DAO for health and wellness. We have an app where our members can come in and start sharing their health and wellness data, whether that's their wearable data. And so it's starting to make some of that data valuable. And we have a fun and exciting character in the app named Reppy that guides you through the journey. Reppy asks you questions about your health and your wellness, and then leverages AI and other things to give you valuable insights on your health. And the whole time you're earning what are called heartbeats within the system. I don't know how many people live in the US, but on October 6th of this year, it was Data Freedom Day, where people got unfettered access to their health and wellness data. And that's mountains of data coming to people with no real way of understanding or knowing how to make sense of it. So we're trying to solve that problem for them and give them a place where it can all be aggregated, it can all be protected and private on their own device, but where they can transact it potentially to earn from it as they see fit. So that's what we're doing. We're excited about the privacy layers, the potential that has for data exchange.
That's a great use for privacy in general. I think people's health data is something that is pretty personal and potentially contains sensitive information. One of the really fundamental core principles of Oasis is that we want to enable people to use their data to benefit themselves, to benefit the world. So like in AI models, things of that nature, but also to retain autonomy of the ownership of that data. Going back to what we said about entirely transparent EVMs, once you post it on chain on other networks, it's hard to get the autonomy of your data back. It's out in the open and anyone can copy it, anyone can share it, they can use it for purposes that you don't even know about. So that's an interesting point for privacy, the healthcare, and data aggregation space as a whole. It's a very interesting idea, and it speaks to the fact that DAOs can be coordinated and set up to do anything. Paulina and Raul, if you want to give us brief overviews of what XDAO and Oris DAO are doing.
Yeah, sure. XDAO is a platform. It's an outsourced DAO builder. It's a way to enable anyone to create their DAOs absolutely free. At the moment, we don't charge anything for DAO creation. We have 30 blockchains you can build your DAO on. You will only need to pay gas fees, and you don't have to code anything when you're creating your DAO. We have all smart codes written out and audited, and it's very safe. We have more than 22,000 of DAOs created on our platform. And we're developing more and more ways to make our platform even better. At the moment, we have different modules which could improve your DAO. We have some modules such as crowdfunding module and private exit module, a dividend distribution module. So when you're creating your organization, we have everything you need: governance tokens that are not transferable, and the making mechanics that is decided by quorum, and the amount of GTs that you give to your members. So it's actually very, very flexible, and you could decide a lot of things on a platform that would be suitable for your DAO. And we have LP token, which is made for fundraising, and it represents the investment activity in your organization. So there are many mechanics that you could do on our platform, and you can try it anytime. You can go ahead and create your DAO and see what you could do with it. We just are here to inspire creativity and help you with everything.
I can't speak highly enough of what XDAO is doing. I remember when you guys first launched on Emerald, I tested the product out and I was amazed at how easy it was to set up a DAO. It took like maybe 5 clicks and you could customize how many members of the multisig you wanted to have. You could customize how many LP tokens you wanted to have. You could add your exit module or your dividend module or anything. It just was super simple and straightforward. And maybe someone who's handling fundraising or something like that, maybe they're not a smart contract developer, but they see the power of DAOs. But they're not going to be able to build this all out on themselves. So I just commend XDAO for creating a very seamless process for setting up a DAO. So literally anyone can do it.
Thank you very much. That is so great.
Yeah, thanks, Will, for having us. We are fairly new into the game. And let me start off with saying that this is such a great initiative by the Oasis protocol, and I'm really excited to be here. Yeah, Oris DAO is basically the DAO that governs the Oris Finance protocol. We launched with the mission of bringing financial inclusion for everybody. We really wanted to solve the challenges that the asset management space is facing in Web3. So if you look at traditional asset management or even crypto asset management for that fact, it still doesn't align with the values of decentralization and transparency. So we tried our best to solve those problems. You can think of Oris as the first automated market taker protocol, a decentralized on-chain and transparent asset manager. We are able to do that by implementing some quantitative trading strategies inside correlated asset pairs. So what we are trying to essentially do is bring asset management with the front end of traditional AM pools with a familiarity of DEXs so that the users feel at home, and the protocol is able to dynamically trade between assets and rebalance the pool. And that's how it's able to make profits from the market. And that's why we're calling it the market taker. So essentially, the crux of it is bringing on-chain, decentralized and transparent asset management to the space. In the future, the DAO also aims to bring asset management to the metaverse. And we have some exciting use cases for NFTs as well, where we'll be launching quarterly NFT collections for reduced management fees on the protocol for holders, and we'll be introducing more of such utilities for NFTs. Oris DAO is basically a unique Web3 intersection of DeFi and DAOs and NFTs and possibly metaverse in the future.
Thank you so much. I think we saw a broad spectrum of use cases, healthcare data, asset management, as well as DAO tooling and the ability to create fundraising and DAOs quickly at an individual level or spin up your own DAO in minutes. So these are all like great use cases for how DAOs can be leveraged in the Web3 space. But I'd love to hear some of your guys' thoughts on DAO governance and how they might benefit from privacy. Why maybe could confidential voting empower the space more? Happy to hear what everyone is thinking.
Yeah, as a DAO tool, as I first heard about privacy layers and confidentiality, I first thought that it would be so cool for DAOs to have confidential voting. We have hybrid voting system. As soon as you reach the quorum, as soon as enough amount of votes is there, anyone can execute the voting. Until that, it is all like hybrid voting because the votes are off-chain and the execution is on-chain, so you have to pay the gas fee only once. But the thing is, in the process, you see the signs and how many are there for the decision. And I think that confidential in this place would be very beneficial, as the decision of each member wouldn't be biased. It would be absolutely his decision, as no one would see the decision of others. And as soon as the decision is made, anyone could execute it. I think that it just brings more decentralization. At this moment, it's not about hiding the information, it's about giving the information that is actually needed to be seen. It doesn't mean that it is absolutely closed for everyone, just the decision is made by those who are actually there for it. And I think it's really cool. I think that could be very useful.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. As I've thought about it, I think you want to create a safe space, a secure environment for your people in your DAO to be able to share their opinions without fear or any sort of discrimination or thinking there could be retribution. So I think that's really important to try to minimize the external forces and biases on decision-making processes within a DAO. I think a potential drawback could be just holding each other accountable, right, for actions and decisions. I know with public servants and government, it's important that people understand their voting record and see how they're voting consistently. And if that's anonymous all the time, maybe that could be a potential drawback. I'd be curious what people think about that. But I do think it does a lot to create a safe space for people to be able to vote how they feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I echo both your points. I think that what we're really trying to achieve is eliminating bias. I think that in traditional voting mechanisms, the status quo has been to keep things more anonymous for a reason. I think that over time we've learned that it creates the most unbiased. But then, as you said, Kyle, maybe there is a drawback. People do want to hold each other accountable for their voting, especially in particular sectors like public health or public goods. My thoughts on it is that with the Oasis privacy layer, you sort of have customizability. I talked about this earlier, but you can customize it. So it can create a mechanism where you build the DAO so that only during the voting phase things are anonymous, and then things become de-anonymous after the voting is completed. And so in that way, you might be able to create an unbiased vote, but then still hold people accountable after the fact.
Yeah, those are all great points. Something that I really wanted to talk about is the importance of the privacy voting within the DAO itself. So let's say you have decision making in the DAO itself, and there are certain factors that certain departments or people that are connected to, they're not doing their job well, or they're trying to take a different direction. I think having a privacy layer and voting in a private manner that is undisclosed would definitely have unbiased and fair voting, and without feeling like you just ratted out on someone or something like that. I think that's something that's really important. I also wanted to talk about the privacy layer. It's essential for some organization like ours. For example, we'll be having a lot of trading strategies. We would like for the protocol to be open and everything to be transparent, but having certain sensitive information and trading strategies that have alpha in them transparent would end up not working, because everybody will be able to see those strategies. So having only those layers private on the network is a great use case for the privacy layer as well.
Absolutely. Even as the DAO space becomes larger as a whole, there'll be a lot of competitive projects, and maybe they don't want to share all this alpha about what they're doing, what they're voting on, and that sort of thing. And this is possible through the privacy layer. The goal is to reduce bias, but also increase optionality for these protocols to structure DAOs however they want. That's been the name of the game for the last 3 years. With Snapshot, you created the ability to do off-chain voting aggregation. Tools like XDAO allow simple DAOs to be built. So I think the privacy layer is just one more tool that people can leverage to structure DAOs however they want. I think what a lot of people talked about today was bias, and I just wanted to give maybe an example to demonstrate how we see bias in the DAO space today. So the example I always give is Aave. Aave is a very large lending protocol for anyone who doesn't know, and they have a ton of TV, the Ethereum chain, and some of their other chains. So what the privacy layer does is it enables them to build their governance smart contracts on Sapphire and keep their main protocol and all their TVL, all their lending, their main chains where their users are. And so it empowers them to add this new functionality without having to migrate the larger parts of the protocol to a different environment. And you might ask why they would want privacy. I think what we talked about so far has been biased, and I think Aave is also a great example for that. Stani, the creator of Aave, is famous for not partaking in any of the DAO governance votes because he doesn't want to bias his community. So the creator of the project doesn't even vote on any of the protocols for fear of bias and fear of being called out for centralization. That's good on him. But at the same time, he should have a voice too, as well as anyone else who's a community thought leader in the DAO. So this just enables people to partake and not feel bias. And that's on the individual level. But then there's also bias in real time. You can see how a vote is doing. So maybe I'm not aware of a proposal and I see that one side is winning, even though only 1% of people have voted. And maybe I vote towards the winning side just because that's what I see as winning, even though that's only reflective of 1%. Maybe the rest would have been not in favor of a proposal. But now, because the results are viewable in real time, it can skew it, or it could lead people to believe that their vote doesn't matter. And then one last example of how it can be beneficial is there's many examples in Aave's history where a voting proposal was going to pass or fail, and maybe that's against what you wished. And so instead of voting, people just abstain from voting because the best way to get your through would be to make the vote fail to meet quorum. And so I think these are all issues that DAOs face, or they're solvable issues, but they require privacy. Anyone has any thoughts on that before we start wrapping up?
Yeah, what you said was really accurate. It's very essential. It's funny that one of my friend mentioned that DAOs were created for privacy. It's very important to have a privacy-centric governance system embedded inside the DAO itself to be able to vote without outside the sphere of influence. That's one of the main reasons that I believe privacy layers should exist, or at least there should be options to have those around.
Yeah, and for me, I also have one to what you said. You talked about a psychological part of this process of the voting, and I think it's very important to consider it. But I also think one thing that we all should consider when we're talking about confidential votings is that it makes us want to not vote at all, as it works like this room with white walls where nothing is there and you need to make a decision. I think that all the UI around it should be reminding you why you actually have to vote, because it can actually ease the activity on the vote, as you don't see the process live. Seeing some kind of process that makes you want to be part of it, makes you want to vote.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, and I think there's some people working in the space around that. Maybe that's another use case for privacy in DAOs, just connecting your emails to a smart contract or an encrypted IPFS file, where the smart contract can essentially send out a mass email to anyone who has subscribed, but then also at the same time, no one can see who has subscribed and no one can see who is connected. Kyle, do you have any closing thoughts?
Just that privacy is important and it should be the default, and it seems to be under attack. So any way that we can continue to empower it, I think it's our right to have it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was so interesting and so great to discuss it today. Have a great rest of the day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.